may begin to feel anxious or excited. High dosage administration can cause adverse reactions. This is a normal response.
Its highlights have been compressed on this recording to make their own disquieting points.
Remember that death is not the end, but only a transition.
This video was bang on brilliant stuff. I'll give it a shout out in my next video. I've forwarded it to Malcolm to check out too.
The viewers have spoken.
What an amazing documentary. Thanks for producing it.
Never seen this all tied together so well. Gonna share the heck out of it. Bravo and thank you.
Divine Science is officially a hit.
Amazing stuff, very nicely presented. New sub who can't consume your content quick enough. Great video, dude. Keep at it, you are doing the good work.
You did a great job putting this all together. It's a great overview, goes into amazing depth at times, so it's interesting for the larger swath of people. Well played, sir.
Okay, so I didn't sleep last night because I watched this 3 times and binged the rest of the channel. You have fantastic instincts for piecing concepts together. Almost every section was something I was already familiar with in a different context, and this documentary was the thread connecting them all.
Join us on a journey into a place of hidden knowledge. A place where science is stranger than fiction.
1, 2. Can you guys hear me now? There we go. Okay, sorry about that. Streamlabs apparently glitched on me. No matter how much I try to set these little streams up to be visually captivating, something always screws up. So, bear with me. Okay, so here is the presentation I have for you guys today. Since you didn't hear anything I basically said, we're going to be going over the conclusions of Phase 1 testing for the Rodent Coil 0-point energy generator Mark 1. And I'll be playing some kind of long videos, but they're very important information, and I'll be showing you the process which I kind of went through to discover the Rodent Coil Nunez method and what led me to believe that it was a viable option to look into, and also some of my theories regarding the coil. So we'll be going over all that. Let's jump into the first video here. So it all started with this video from Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference. Now this is the video that started it all for me. It was the video that Daniel and Erica Nunez demonstrated or presented their findings with the rodent coil. And if you haven't seen it, I think it's like an hour long. We're going to watch the whole thing, guys, because it is very important information, and basically all of it is vital. I've seen this probably a dozen times already in full. And I'm just showing you how vital it is. I'm watching it again in full just so I can make sure I didn't miss anything.
Very much for coming. So this is vortex-based technologies. This is what we're going to be talking about today. And do we have a, let's see if this works. Well, again, my name is Daniel Nunez.
And I'm Erica Nunez.
Okay.
So basically, we're going to explain from the beginning how everything started with us. We're independent researchers, but approximately 5 years ago, we were very superficial, bartender, model, actor, and we had no idea about anything about sustainable energies or anything about self-healing. Very conditioned, basically. Okay.
Like a lot of us.
We started a nightlight project because I was unable to sleep in the dark. So my husband did a lot of research, as well as I. But in the beginning, it was more finding a way that we can make a nightlight that we don't have to pay. Con Edison in New York is Con Edison, that we wouldn't have to pay so much money for having the nightlight on all night. So after looking into different current alternative energy options, we realized that the solutions today are either too expensive or susceptible to failure due to the changing weather conditions. This launched us into a quest for a different type of energy amplification. We began analyzing previous exotic technologies which claim to operate using zero-point energy, or the energy of the universe. After countless hours of researching permanent magnet motors, solid-state generators, and many other elaborate technologies, we narrowed down our interest to one of the few areas of research that aim to tackle the fundamental law in our current energy distribution designs of today: vortex-based mathematics. Today, our focus is geared towards applying these general principles in order to create new sustainable alternatives for a wide range of sectors that are in need of new solutions.
This is probably one of the most relevant energy conferences in the last 20 years.
So this is the mathematical theory behind it all. We're very blessed to have Mr. Randy Powell here in support of vortex-based math. He will be talking later on this afternoon. So the vortex-based math
Apparently they worked with
principle.
Randy. I can't
Vortex-based
confirm that,
math
but I have
states that all
suspicions.
circulating energy flows in natural, predetermined pathways of symmetry. And these pathways, if utilized correctly, can optimize efficiency by creating the path of least resistance for the energy flow. And you see Marco Rodin here, Mr. Randy Powell on the right. And this is the premise of vortex-based mathematics. This is like looking at our energy with a different perspective altogether, one that says that we're not really following the path of least resistance right now. And what if we actually start following that path? What happens? So that was primarily the focus of where we wanted to gear towards, because again, solar panels, they don't work during the nighttime. Wind turbines won't work when the wind is not present. So the only thing that we saw as a viable solution was to tackle the fundamental. So that's vortex-based math. Some of the supporting avenues of research that I'm sure many of you are familiar with are, again, vortex math. Dan Winter's implosion physics. So Dan Winters is talking about fractal geometry and how fractals basically create the three-dimensional reality that we exist in. So Nassim Harameyn's grand unified field theory, many of you are familiar with that, talks about the torus, again, as the most inclusive energy source altogether. And if we were to engineer ourselves into that type of reality, we would be having a much more sustainable today. So torsion physics, that's also the same avenue. Cymatics, we mentioned that because cymatics talks about the effect of sound on matter. And we found that to be a crucial element in these vortex coils. And wanted to set things up. We didn't really have so much time for preparations here. But what happens with these coils, and we will discuss that a little bit later in the slide, is that these coils, when you put a precise sound frequency into these devices, you can actually get out more energy from the coil than what's put into them. And that's pretty much something that science says is not really supposed to happen right now. But yet we're able to do that on a very stable basis. So Thomas Bearden's scalar wave technologies are talking about two-directional energy waves. What you see here is two-directional energy waves. We have counterclockwise rotation, clockwise rotation, and it really doesn't matter which comes first. You see clockwise is above the counterclockwise. It doesn't matter if you interchange the two. So that's scalar wave energy, using the fundamental of two energy waves and combining the two. So Lee Burton's low shoe matrix is very similar to vortex math, same understanding of these certain pathways of symmetry. Walter Russell, many of you are familiar with, and of course, fractal geometry again. So these are some of the people that we mentioned there. And we see the phi spiral, we see just these fundamentals. We see galaxies, they look like two toroidal
I have
energies
some exciting news
one atop the other,
phi
creating
ratio.
an accretion disk where we live.
I'll announce that later
So
when I go for my results.
that's Nassim Harameyn there, Dan Winters.
These are some of our early replications of the Rodin coil, which was the first physical interpretation of VBM into coil form. It was developed by a seasoned engineer named Russell P. Blake and was later adopted by Jamie Berturf. These coils have been applied as therapy devices for the body, sensitive antenna systems, high-speed motor generators, and many other applications.
So that's this one right here. This was
all the different
one of our
geometries
flattened
of
out
the Rodin coil have specific
designs.
uses.
And we took that
And
same
they're all
geometry
fractals
as
of
12 o'clock,
VBM,
5 o'clock
different
pattern.
scales.
And we just flattened it out and created a type of structure so that we can maintain the geometry. So that's that one.
Boost your revenue and drive growth with Google Ads. Reach high-value customers across.
This is the Abha torus, Randy Powell's interpretation of vortex-based mathematics. It was the first visual that introduced us to his advanced work over 2 years ago and sparked a different perspective within our minds.
Was the one who was able
Around
to
the same
map
time, we
VBM
encountered this
onto
crop
a
circle
physical
image,
device
which
for
served as an
uses.
exciting confirmation to continue researching along this
Up
path.
until him, it was just theory.
So this is very interesting. We get into these geometries. Anyone who's ever dove into sacred geometry or anything along that path will attest to the fact that you come up with these things like crop circles, and it's very powerful to say that nobody knows where they come from. They just happen to pop into these wheat fields or just show up out of nowhere. And then one of the byproducts is a high concentration of magnetic energy right in the center of these crop circles where people can go lay down and experience healing. So that's a big deal. And it's a little bit more along the fringe path, but that I guess we're all very into that.
Which makes very much sense.
Again,
with
I'm
our
a little more
coils,
skeptical of the healing
because at
properties,
center of our
but we
coil
will
is
be
where
exploring
the most,
those
magnetic
in the future.
field comes out of, from the center of our coils.
And we'll definitely touch on that in a moment as well. So this was the first ABHA coil that we see here. It was created by an engineer named Jack Scholes. With it, he demonstrated prolonged resonance. So what does that mean? Well, Jack Scholes had a different type of rendering of a vortex coil, ABHA coil, and he turns it on, and he has a magnet just like this one, spinning in the center or above a
their
glass
neodymium
plate.
sphere looks
So
a
you
lot
see there,
smaller
there's a
than
glass
mine. I
bowl.
should get a smaller
so
one.
Then the gentleman walks away 15 feet or more, and that magnet is still spinning in resonance with that coil. So how does something like that happen? How is it able to quantum lock so that this magnet can sustain that type of rotation? It's something never before seen by any other technology. So we just found that to be very, very important. And again, that's the first ABHA coil that we made.
I know, right? Magnetic synchronicity is not something
there,
that's
we
common.
basically took this
It's
out
not
of a
something that you can
plexiglass
just, oh, that's just
plate,
another
and we carved out by hand
experiment.
every one of the
No.
notches for the wires to lay in.
It's quantum
After that,
entanglement.
We figure, how are we going to keep the wires in place? We used clay for that. Not the most practical thing to use to create your structures, but it worked. And with it, we demonstrated energy reduction purposes, so feeding energy through it so that you can conserve energy, high-speed magnet motors, and other applications.
The unification coil. This was a construction which combined a new framework for winding coils, an advanced ABHA coil design, and the classic rodent coil pattern laying above it. The resulting unit could create a 20-foot magnetic field while stepping up energy in new and exciting ways. It used a total of 578 wires and took quite a long time to construct. I stood there 18 hours sanding and soldering this coil in particular because of the 578 wires, and it took 2 months to complete. With it, we learned that the concentration of energy isn't in the core of the vortex coil structure. Rather, it is focused into the center hole of the torus. This observation was made after our embedded plasma ring did not activate in the way we had imagined.
So I'm not sure if you guys could make this out, but right in the center there's like a reflection. That's an actual plasma ring. It was blown by Bill Chebb, who does the Hold the Clark Rife Technologies. And we expected that we were going to create a type of plasma reactor, a desktop plasma reactor that would rotate plasma around. Didn't happen. Inside the cavity of the vortex is a null zone, so we could almost imagine creating our housing structures and living in there, and that would be a safe place to live, where all the magnetic energy is compressed into the very center versus the way that we're doing now with our regular type of wiring, where we're just literally inside of boxes of electricity that protrude outwards, they interact with our energies, they disrupt our fields and such. So this would allow for a different way of creating housing structures and pretty much everything, but we'll continue on there.
The POE coil.
As we've seen in the Cosmic Summit presentation, you know, EMF can disrupt our biology,
frame, which acts as
our
the
ability to
support
think
for the
clear.
vortex coil conductors. When combined with a simple spiraling POE pattern, coil construction can now be a quick, accurate, and enjoyable process. This approach is more cost-effective and less time-consuming than most 3D printer options available today for detailed frame construction and mass manufacturing.
So our overall approach was to create something that could be replicatable every single time with precision. And right now there are other people working on very elaborate coil designs using 3D printing machines and basically creating solid structures with grooves in them. We found that this approach was more practical. It can piece together very rapidly. It's very cost effective, you know, under $100 per frame. So it's very amazing that you could just piece together something very, very quickly and you have 100% symmetry every time. So that's where we came up with the frame and the wiring algorithm. We think that it's essentially most important to uphold the integrity of the vortex just use that vortex energy as a fundamental. It doesn't really matter where the conductors are ending, where they're starting. It's really just about creating that shape and utilizing that shape and the fundamental of vortex energy. So this is the general method of excitation. So in our standard configuration for electrical testing of vortex coil, channel A and channel B are powered in reverse direction via stereo amplifiers. So we didn't have a chance to set this up yet, but we can talk you through it. Once the resonant frequency is reached, the vortex coil generates a high voltage oscillation, which is perfect for lighting and battery charging. In most cases, the measurements indicate an ability to maintain current while amplifying voltage by at least a factor of 10. So what we see is we have 30 volts going into the coil. We have 130 volts coming out of the coil. Now, what's happening to the amperage is the question, because a lot of these Tesla technologies, they step up voltage, but at the expense of current. You have no current. You have high voltage, but no current. There's no power there. So what this is doing is it's compensating maybe 10 milliamps of current, no more. So what we're seeing is at least a doubling of how much energy is coming out of the coil versus what's going into it, which is groundbreaking news, and it allows us to engineer devices on this principle instead of looking at it from the sense of let's give energy here and extract energy here and lose all of that inductive coupling and we waste power. Instead, we're resonating our load with the coil, and we're getting into this understanding of resonance and how much we can actually affect technologies as a result. Some of those testing observations?
Testing observations. Controllable low voltage ozone production, multiple magnetic monopole detection, energy gains using a 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-1 ratio coils, coil sensitivity to the Earth's magnetic field, bioelectric interactions with the coil, energy reduction when charging batteries or spinning magnets, synchronization of multiple rotors at different axes, plasma excitation.
I just want to emphasize here, when I was watching this for the first time, I was thinking to myself, if even 1% of what they're saying is true, somebody has to be looking into this, right? And the more I looked into people trying to do the rodent coil and comparing it to their method, the more I seen people doing it wrong. And obviously there were many like flawed methodologies that I seen. We'll get into Robert Murray Smith later, but yeah, he kind of pissed me off. But I was thinking to myself, if even 1% of what they're saying is true, somebody has to be looking into this. And since I didn't see anybody who was actually doing what they said here in this presentation and what they said to do with the coil and the connections and all that and how to wind it, I'm like, okay, well, if nobody's doing this, then I have to try and see if it works. And it did.
Through the center of a vortex coil, increased growth rates in plants around coils, self-cooling properties when running high voltage, very large magnetic fields for little input power, 576 LEDs illuminated using only 1 watt of power, and many more.
So this is huge. This is very important.
I don't think people at the conference grasp the implications here until he's like,
interactions
this is
with the
big.
coils. What does that mean? That means that we could literally replace the sound frequency generator with our own bioelectric energy. You can, any one of you don't have to have special powers. You can come over, grab the input source with your own bioelectric energy, and your bioelectric energy will trigger a response in this coil to generate high voltage and over unity. Oh, no. That's amazing. So that's just one of those things. Plasma reactors, main problem with the plasma reactors, they have to turn off in 2 minutes. What if we can run our plasma reactors indefinitely without ever
This doesn't
overheating?
heat up. It solves the heat problem, like
deal.
Marco Rodin says.
Maximum ozone detection.
That's exactly what
This
he
is the
said. That was
unification
theory
coil
before Randy
rewired.
Powell
With it, we tested the strength of ozone
made the
produced by
coil.
the vortex coil resonance. On a scale from 1 to 4, each result indicated the maximum concentration of O3. Now this one is the new rewired unification coil. Our frames, this is when we changed our frames for the second time. And if from the research we've done, ozone
right, Mike.
is
You
made
have to
from
tweak
7
it a
to
little bit.
30,000 voltages, and we're
Exactly.
getting
But you
ozone
can't get it to work.
at a set frequency coming out of the center of this coil.
Maybe 40 volts.
In most cases, O3 is used as a sterilizing agent for water, foods, and high traffic spaces, which are prone to contamination. We use it ourselves in our home. We'll turn on the coil, clear out the air of the room, and then come back in 30 minutes and scent free and perfect.
It'll literally take out any toxins. This is huge for third world countries that are suffering with diseases and all these different things, these different contaminations, and with no way to actually sterilize their spaces. Another method is using ultraviolet light, but that also consumes a lot of wattage. So what if we were able to
That's a
create
lot of
ozone
power to
generators
power UV.
using maybe 30 watts of power? What does that mean for sterilizing food, sterilizing water? So many different things. Not only will this coil structure the water, but it will also sterilize it if integrated with ozone. So that's a very huge application there. This is another big one.
Agricultural applications. So this was our first experiment of wheatgrass being grown under low wattage LED crop lighting. We placed the
Another
oscillating
experiment
coil
we're gonna be
next to the
doing in the near
wheatgrass and
future.
found that the growth rates were accelerated in the sprouts closest to the vortex coil. In
Might
this way, we
experiment
can
with
boost
mushrooms
plant
as
growth
well.
via lighting and magnetic field influence, a low-cost solution for agricultural advancement. As you can see here, it's not that, not really. Well, let me describe exactly what the testing resulted for us. Over here, this small wheatgrass was it was light green and very weak, and this one was a hunted green color, and it was just like strong, and it grew a lot more. And the coil's right here on this side. So the coil is powering the lights,
Yes, Joe,
and
the
it's throwing out a
possibilities are
huge
endless. Like I
electromagnetic
say in my
field.
video,
So what we ended up seeing was
It's
a
an
linear
all-in-one
slope
system.
in the wheatgrass. So it actually grew like this. So the coil was sitting right there, and the wheatgrass grows like this. So indicating that the magnetic influence is actually doing something to the plants, and we're actually replicating this.
That's a good idea,
back home
Mike.
right now
I'll have to
with
talk to you about that.
cilantro. But I'm sure it could be applied to any different type of agriculture purpose.
Did you say it was growing at an angle?
It grew literally at an angle,
Like what
yes.
what degree? I couldn't see.
It was a linear slope like this, so that whatever.
So normally it's that way and it was like that way.
Yeah, so
Exactly.
each,
Wow.
although, so it was like the growth rate was enhanced, and it literally tapered down as the magnetic field tapered down. So it just shows that's the same thing we can do right here with this meter. We can show that when this coil is on, and actually this one's driving, so we could see that we're at max potential, and as we go away, our magnetic field is tapering down. So this actually, the last slide indicated the same exact thing, which was the linear slope. So the wheatgrass that was closest, it grew faster.
Vortex coil lighting inverter, 11 LEDs, 1,300 lumens for only 3/4 of a watt, 0.75. Here's our 4-year-old Daniel Anthony doing his schoolwork using 0.75 watts of power. This unit utilizes a modified Joule Thief circuit in conjunction with a PoE mini vortex coil in order to provide maximum intensity for less than 1 watt of input power. This type of light is perfect for off-grid villages, camping trips, or even as an ultra efficient nightlight. For me, yes, my nightlight finally.
So the nightlight that was, this is where it all started, and we don't see it finishing here, but this is where it all began, and when we finally got that accomplished, this is 3/4 of a watt, putting out 1,300 plus lumens. And
What's it normally?
what it would be normally is maybe around the same consumption, but a lot less intensity. So
Philips-
we're getting much more intensity.
Philips currently has 200 lumens for 1 watt of power. So we have 0.75 for 1,300.
Yeah, you had said that obviously if we just touch it, we can power the coil ourselves. We are biological.
Amplified with an amplifier, of course, yes.
Now, could you, theoretically with plants, did you see that presentation done where the plants were actually singing? Like they were making the music, it was over there. So there's that little stands over there. Somebody had the plants connected to something and they were actually playing music. So my question was, could you theoretically connect the plants to the coil as well, and they would amplify that too?
We did that with the tree.
Yes.
With, what was it, a peach tree.
Yes. Well, what you're talking about with the peach tree, we had a peach tree, we resonated the whole cavity of the tree in order to move to the far reaches of the tree, to the extremities, and listen to actual tones that were playing through the entire tree using minimal wattage. But yes, you can basically take the plug it into the ground, so right to the earth, and amplify earth energy through the amplifier in order to stimulate the same response. Yes, any bioelectric energy will do. So thank you.
And we're back. And the team is looking down the barrel of a 455 meeting.
They're gassed, Jill. Can they turn it around and make this meeting an email?
It's going to be a tough shot. But whoa there, they're getting an assist from Grammarly.
What up?
So this is conserve power while producing power. This has got to be one of the most low-hanging fruits that are available right now. This is the experiment we utilize with a 14-gauge PoE coil. It can handle 1 kilowatt of power for the purpose of energy conservation. By feeding energy through the coil in opposing directions, we attain a 10 to 15% savings of total power consumption with a minor temperature drop of 10 degrees Fahrenheit. Then, using the focused magnetic potential, we spun a magnetic shaft above it, essentially illuminating 192 LEDs with the pickup energy
Everybody's brainstorming. I love it.
Being generated by the spinning magnetic energy. What does that mean? That means that we can feed energy through this coil using the energy that we're already using right now in this room. Just feed the energy through the coil, and now you can have a generator that runs off of the energy that we're already using. So why not maximize the energy that we're already consuming in a very simple way? So this is not just one coil we're talking about. We can build generators around the energy that we're already consuming. It's all pulsing at 60 hertz. Why not generate more with what we're already consuming? So that's the concept here.
Notice how they
so
have
10
the wires
degrees
tightly
Fahrenheit, for
bundled
those of you who
in
are not aware,
a pack.
it's not very much of a drop at all in temperature. So 10 to 15% savings. You save on your power bill, produce more power.
Vortex coil plasma excitation. This was an experiment using the PoE coil to excite our previous plasma tube using the electromagnetic compression of the center hole. At under 50 volts of input power, we are able to yield enough output voltage to power a 400-volt xenon tube, while providing charge to the central plasma ring in the process. This concept can be scaled for electrode-less lamp technologies or advanced plasma reactor designs, which maintain a cool temperature instead of overheating.
So it was heartbreaking at first to take apart that coil that took us 2 months to construct. So we actually had to take out that plasma tube. You see it right through the center now. How did we know that that would work? Well, we took a fluorescent tube while we were driving the vortex coil at its most resonant point, and we put it right in the center. And you could see that the gas was wanting to excite just around the inner diameter. So then we figure, okay, well, if the gas is wanting to excite on its own, then why not just take out that old plasma tube and wind the coil around just so that it's two rings intertwined? It makes perfect sense. And if this were to be scaled up, this touches right back on what we were saying before. Plasma is used for healing, it's used for power production, it's used for a host of different things, and a lot of people are making great breakthroughs right now with plasma. So why not use coils that cool themselves down?
Between the wheel formations.
So resonance, again, resonance.
Interesting.
1 to 7.6 step up, step down Tesla vortex transformer. This is our combination of Tesla's alternating transformer ratios with vortex energy fundamentals. In this way, we are able to generate high voltage using much lower frequencies than ever before. This system can be applied to a number of applications and aims to introduce ways of combining new concepts with much older ones.
So we're working off of this idea that the coils are able to create this resonant spike or this resonant energy by feeding energy in opposite directions. So now what happens when you take the same concepts that Tesla was presenting using the fine gauge wire and then the thick wire at the bottom to create that different ratio. So when you do that, you find that this coil is able to put out even higher voltage, so it's able to work off of that same resonance but amplify it even more. So that could be used for lighting purposes. We could be pulsing
Right,
our lights
so if you
or
have a
charging our
secondary
batteries
coil,
while we're using our
probably just a
electricity.
regular one,
It just gives a different
step up the
option
voltage
for
even
how you
more.
can apply this fundamental. And we're stuck there. There we go.
Some early applications: low wattage lighting inverters, magnetic pulse therapy devices for plants and animals, 3D sound speakers, solid-state battery chargers, energy-efficient wireless induction mats, low-power induction heaters, efficient motor generator designs, low-power induction lamp technologies, advanced step-up, step-down transformers using one-to-one coils.
I think
So all
we
these
all
things
need to
are
start
really,
working
really
on a
viable
3D sound
solutions right
system with
now
this device.
for how
What do
we
you
can
think?
integrate these coils. And there are many more that we didn't even touch on. HHO is one. We had a gentleman replicate our coil, and he actually applied it for low voltage HHO. He was using 1 watt of power, and he was able to create or separate the hydrogen from the water in order to use it as a fuel cell. So
Imagine
that's
a
something
sound
that's
box,
possible.
right? Just one
So
device
magnetic
you put
pulse
in
therapy.
the front of your TV.
We're creating
but it
expansive
actually
magnetic
has
fields. This is not
true
something I
surround
wouldn't
sound,
suggest right now
where the
for
sound is
people to be
coming
pulsing
behind you.
themselves with
That's what
coils
this
because it
coil is
has not
capable of
been
if
peer
you have
reviewed
the
yet.
device hooked up
But
right.
we already
Now,
know
they
that
say you can't
PEMF
do surround
therapies
sound
exist.
with it.
They use
But I
regular
disagree.
coil
I think we can
designs,
tweak it.
and it's just basically the same thing: copper wound in a regular way. And now what we want to do is change the way that we're winding that copper. We want to use the vortex fundamentals presented in VBM, and we want to use that to our advantage, create a bigger magnetic field that consumes less energy. Why not? You know, why not have a coil that can pulse right here in the center of the room, and everybody can experience that pulse electromagnetic therapy using low wattage? So that's possible. 3D sound, what does that mean? Well, if we were to turn on this coil and play music through it, we can literally perceive the sound in a different way. It sounds like it's coming from different corners of the room almost. And when you play tones,
It's really weird.
it's quite magical. You can hear different things coming from different places. You think you're going crazy.
Without
But
surround sound.
But it's no surround sound. It's just one coil, one magnet put on top of it. You can amplify it with aluminum. But it's very basic, and that coil can produce a very, very unique type of sound. So that's 3D sound. Solid state battery charging. This is the same thing that we talked about. This is the same thing that we're seeing here. Instead of running these lights, we could be charging our batteries, serve as backup systems that can run off of small solar panels. You're out and about, your car stalls out, you need 12 volts.
Sure, we could
you don't
add
have
some
anywhere to
pulse
get
lights
it.
in there.
Well, now you can carry around with something like that in your car and saves you a
Talking
lot
from
of
personal experience.
It actually worked. So wireless induction mats, it's another thing. Wireless induction mats consume a lot of power right now, but that's also because of the old design. We're again talking about this old circulating, just one layering above the next. That is not the way energy wants to flow, and we will have deeper insights later on today by Mr. Randy Powell, and he'll talk a little bit more on why that's like that. Because all energy wants to flow in the natural way, and that's a different type of circulating pattern. So low energy induction mats, it's possible. So we'll just move right along there.
After many dedicated hours designing, building, and testing various vortex coils, we have come to the conclusion that it is possible to engineer a whole new line of technologies around the novel fundamentals presented here. Now, our goal is to incorporate these designs into introductory applications in order to generate the support necessary for further R&D. As support grows, we also see these technologies advancing very rapidly, allowing for a tremendous impact in a number of sectors. Example, battery charging, battery storage, industrial lighting, industrial agriculture, and many others. On a fundamental level, this testing has demonstrated a profound relationship between precision engineering, sound frequency, magnetism, electricity, and most importantly, resonance.
So this is where we're all unifying all of our understandings, each one of us that are here today and that are at home researching this different type of field. We're all talking about the same exact thing, sound frequency, what that does with resonance, how to get things interacting in a resonant way in order to make the most efficiency of our energy, in order to heal ourselves, in order to heal our environment, in order to create energy in a different way that's not detrimental to our planet. So we do feel that this is a very low-hanging fruit that would allow people to experiment with this. This is very basic fundamentals. We've also given out all the information online. We have over 100 videos supporting this work and showing how to apply it, how to build it, how to test it, and everything. So this is something that we want to have other people working on in order to further and broaden the understanding, because we don't claim to have all the answers, but we know that if we give out the information, then other engineers can come together and say, hey, listen, well, there was something very, very fundamental that you overlooked, and this is how you can apply it. So that's very crucial to our development. And that's basically our presentation. We wanted to open up for questions right now. Yeah.
Inside the core of the transformer, inside the torus, to increase a better sound quality of the sound seizure application?
We haven't done it. We haven't. The question was, how is it that aluminum is able to amplify the sound frequency quality?
It's because aluminum is paramagnetic and it's a conductor at the same time. So if you have iron or a magnet to make a regular speaker, if you also had a paramagnetic to act as a faster switch for the magnetic field, I'm just curious if that's why it's making it sound better if you do that experiment.
To my understanding, aluminum conducts electricity in the opposite way from the copper.
When it's at rest.
So that when we bring the aluminum close to the copper, what happens is it amplifies because there's friction against the copper, the energy that's coming off of the copper, and what's going through the aluminum. So when you place the magnet next to it, so just sitting it on top, it doesn't have to be internal. I think we suspect that when you use it internally, it will disrupt some of the resonance because, again, the electricity wants to flow in the opposite direction from the aluminum. So when you put it right on top, you're able to amplify sound in a unique way. Next question.
If you're a business owner, then animated explainer videos are the best way to capture attention.
The question is, what is the website? The website is the number 1, the character 1, stop, S-T-O-P, energies, IES.com. Thank you. That's, the website is onestopenergies.com.
I missed the beginning, but what was the manufacturing? Oh, yes. I was asking, what are how are you manufacturing them? Are they being made by hand? Do you have some sort of a jig or something that you're using to build this, or I missed the first few minutes, so I didn't know how you did that.
Well, what we're doing right now is we're having these little discs made by a laser machine, so laser cutting machine. So what they do is they basically insert a big slab of a certain material, cut out a series of spoked discs, and it slides onto a central frame that basically holds all those discs in place. After that, we're taking this wire, stretching it out, let's say for the small one 20 feet, for the bigger one 50 feet, and we're basically just taking a multi-filial approach of wires, twisting them all together in order to distribute electricity or the tension amongst all those wires. It's a Litz wire effect. So we're stretching out, twisting it, and winding it first counterclockwise and clockwise. And Erica actually did a very detailed video on that, and we have it available.
In the beginning, we used a regular Dremel tool and plexiglass, and that's why it took us about 2 months to construct, because everything was done by hand.
Yes, in the beginning everything was handcrafted. It took a very long time, and now we're figuring out ways to speed along that process.
How long does it down? From 2 months to what?
A lot easier.
2 months to 5 hours.
Put some music on to wind it.
So, thank you. Thank you. 2 months to 5 hours. Big difference.
That's a big leap in manufacturing. To get your process
I was absolutely sure she was using a mix master to twist this together.
Yes, portable electric drill. It works wonders.
Absolutely.
So what gauge wire do you use on? Do you use different gauge for different coils?
Yes. We definitely do use different gauges for different coils. You see here, this is a 28 gauge coil, and it's all different spacing. How many conductors you want to have in that coil. for what purpose, what application. Are you using it as a pickup coil? Are you using it to create the resonance? Are you using it for energy reduction purposes? Energy reduction would need 14 gauge wire, much heavier build, so they can handle more current.
What about HHO?
HHO, that has been used with 24 gauge wire before.
Okay.
So typically it's 24. Yes.
Hello, hi.
That's
A
what
few
my
months
gauge
back,
is, my
an
coils
independent
are,
researcher
24
online
gauge.
posted a video about on a PoE coil that he took the individual wires and placed them in series, so it was one wire. And he said that that as he was smoking in his laboratory, he witnessed that the smoke, was compressed and accelerated through the center, and so that really ignited a lot of inspiration and reminded me of a lot of Dr. Eugene Pakhanoff experiments, where he had a rotating superconductor, he created a pressure differential, and I'm wondering if you had any experiences like that, where there was reduced mass, where there was accelerated mass at the center of the coil, for propulsion means, for instance. I'm just wondering your thoughts and experiences.
Levitation.
Yes, levitation is something that we've also demonstrated. It's a type of maximum compression into the very center of the vortex. So rodent coils also exhibited that same property. Any coil that I believe personally that any coil that is truly a vortex coil should have that same type of levitation effect. But touching on what you were just saying there, if you put an incense underneath the coil, you can actually see that the incense does accelerate into a different type of spiral right up the middle of the coil. What does that mean? I mean, magnetism is affecting everything. We also know that these coils are producing ozone. So if we're able to separate the oxygen molecules in order for it to bind to a united pair to create O3, then we know that it has the ability to interact with actual molecules. So it should be interacting with everything. If you submerge it into water, it will actually split the hydrogen, and you can see the bubbles coming up. So it should work with a number of different things. We haven't tried everything, but
for technical purposes, so that we can replicate it by ourselves, was it the in-series component to that, or will it, with a standard PoE coil, do the same effect?
The standard PoE coil does use a series connection for the two conductors. It essentially uses a multi-filial approach, twisted together, and at the end what we're doing is we're creating a series looping effect, so that essentially it's multiple progressions in through the center of the vortex. The more progressions that we do, the more magnetic energy we're able to collect, and we're getting a bigger resonance as we increase those conductors. So at some point we will experiment with 144 conductors, and we will exhibit a lot more resonance, yielding bigger voltage spikes, etc.
Hi, my question is about the magnetic field. I'm really curious, have you guys mapped it out? Where's the north, where's the south? Is it in motion? Do you have, you were mentioning you had some type of monopole. How do you, or something like that? I want as much detail as you get in the short time we have, just a little bit to give me, I'm just curious as hell, so I just want to know.
Certainly.
The magnetic field, is it rotating? Is it this, where it is it moving, you know? And is there any monopole type things?
So we actually have these, these little, he's actually got the device right there that we use. So it's a pole detector, magnetic pole detector, so maybe we could just grab this really quickly. Thank you. This is actually the same device that we use. It's a magnetic pole detector, so what we're doing with this is driving the coils with alternating current, and we can take this little pole detector, as you can see, it gives a little indication of whether north or south. So right now, this is south, and that's north. So we can do the same thing with the coil. We're creating an electromagnet essentially, and you bring this right into the middle, and we have a south. Then you say, okay, where's the north? Let's flip it over, south. So alternating current will provide south on both sides. When we apply it with DC, we could just take the coil in its same state, connect it right to a DC source, and what we're going to get is south and then a void. So it's like the DC is creating nothing more than just a south. Now, what happens when we take it south of the equator? What happens? Does it turn into a north? We would love to see somebody replicate south of the equator and figure this out. Where is the north and how do we access it? We don't know where the north is.
But it's a pulsed field. It's not a. But in the DC, it's a static field. But it's only south with no north at all.
South and a void.
Can you rewind it so that it's a north with a void? Only south.
We've never seen a north only. Never.
That's what I'm asking.
Never. If you reverse the polarity, what happens? The void becomes on this side and the south is on the other.
I have a question.
One-way directional thrust, yes.
My question is, have you tried several coils as in a step-up transformer to keep increasing the voltage?
Yes. What happens is that when you're feeding the output from one coil into the next coil, it will destroy the next coil because the resonance is so intense that it will just literally, what happens, there's so much ozone production.
Yeah, that was
and
my
what we're
theory,
actually
Mike.
seeing is
The
that
north is
the
just
inner
compressed.
diameter of the coil becomes
If you have
saturated
sensitive
with this
equipment,
type
maybe
of
pick it up.
film or this white type of powder that just condenses all the electrons right into the center. So you see there's something physical that's actually happening there. And it's quite amazing. Right?
Did you say white powder?
A white type of powderish type of residue that forms, and you can scrape it off. And it's pretty interesting. We haven't tested it. What happens when we test it? I would love to see that as well. That's right.
If you give me the details, I'll test mine, because as far as I know, is there another one of your coils in the southern hemisphere other than the one I've got?
That's it.
Okay, good.
Nobody else other than Michael Tellinger has a vortex coil in the southern hemisphere. Yeah.
Hello. You haven't done that test though to see if it's south only. Good. Well, let's swap numbers. It's really important with something I'm working on, so I'm curious.
Hello. I was wondering if you plan to have any schools or workshops on how to build these coils?
Well, actually, we just got word that there may be a school opening up for vortex-based mathematics within the near future. So we would love to have some of these fundamentals taught there as well, and just share what it is that we found in implementing this technology. So yes, we would love to create more detailed instructional videos. We do have all those testings online available right now for viewing, but we would like to gear it towards a more professional educational system as well.
Wix gives you the power of AI to build the website you need.
Hello.
Yes.
I really enjoyed the polarity question. I think that's a real key to understanding this, if we could figure it out. But my question was, when I first saw the rodent coil, I thought, this is it. This is the key to the emitterless light. And you guys have been demonstrating it with sound frequencies. And I just wondered, has anybody tried like a terahertz frequency generator and maybe stacking these together and getting like opposing forces to essentially energize light directly from the ethers in this space? This is what I wanted to see.
That is a huge question. Thank you for that. And you know what? We have been limited by our technology. We're not capable of driving anything in the terahertz range because this device caps out in the megahertz range. The amplifier caps out in the high kilohertz range. So we've never been able to get up to that range, but I'm sure that we will see some type of interaction at higher frequencies. Everything is frequency, and the more you find different resonances with different objects or crystals maybe, you know, it could be very interesting.
I have a question with regard to the north-south issue.
There you go.
I'm kind of new to this, and whenever people have talked north and south for me forever, it's like, okay, they call it north and south, but isn't it going in one side and out the other side? And this guy this morning that was talking said that
inflow and outflow.
North-south is absolutely the wrong way to think about it. You got to think about it as inflow and outflow. And if you think about that, I know nothing about what you're doing. I'm going to find out more, but that would explain why you could have a north and a void, or a south and a void, because it's flowing out and it's not doing the inside or the out. But I don't know which is north in or north out. I mean,
that is the question.
Inflow or outflow?
South is usually out, north is usually in. So the poles of the Earth's magnetic field come out of the southern hemisphere. They go around and then come in. Basically, it's this simple. The field comes out of the south southern hemisphere, goes around and then comes in the northern hemisphere. So that's how it works.
So now, what's now?
Accretion disk.
Now, what he's saying is, ultimately, so what is this doing then? So is it creating
something's coming out?
An out, nothing but out.
Or you're pinching off that North Pole, allowing radiant energy.
What we
just to
have
flow.
seen is that putting a rod through the center, that's the only time we can actually focus enough magnetic energy into the metal to see the North Pole. So that's the only time that we've ever detected a North Pole. Never a north by itself. It's if you introduce a metal element, then you can detect.
Hi, John again. Question I had was, I understand how the coils are constructed, but I've seen people use electricity, put electricity into them in either DC or AC. But then I've heard people say, you put it in a certain frequency. How do you do the frequency part? What device or equipment do you use to do both power and adjust frequency?
The frequency impulse that we're talking about, it's not acoustical sound, and we had that question earlier. If we ever exhibited any kind of effect using acoustical sound, we tried it, maybe just putting the coil above a speaker and trying to see what happened electrically, nothing. But what we're using is an electrical impulse, which is a frequency impulse. So we're creating a sound frequency with this device or any other device. You can use an Android phone, iPhone, computer, or what have you. We're amplifying that sound frequency with an amplifier. And after that, we're feeding it through the coil.
Okay.
A few minutes. Thank you.
Sounds to me like you're getting a south pole only, and you're getting a white precipitate, which sounds like it might be amorphous, and maybe you're generating a singularity.
That is the same thing that I was thinking before, but we haven't tested it to know for sure, but that would be interesting. The white powder, I'm not sure why it condenses only to the very center, and I would suspect that it has to be something like that. It's doing something elemental, and just the fact that it condenses is a big deal, because otherwise, if it were any kind of byproduct of ozone in any other sense, it would be everywhere along the coil, not just on the inner diameter. So it has to be something relating to something that's happening molecularly with, I don't know, but that's something that we definitely have to test.
Because only at a set frequency. Because we pulse with the coils personally at certain frequencies for our chakras. We pulse with the coils, so not if we're pulsing at 432 hertz, we don't get the residue from the ozone production.
What frequencies?
Kilohertz?
In the kilohertz range, so it's particular to each coil design. This coil would resonate somewhere around 20 to 30 kilohertz, whereas the bigger ones would be a slightly lower resonant frequency. So once we're getting the coils into that resonance and not pulsing it like a closed loop system, but allowing the electricity to flow and escape, there's a self-cooling that happens with the coils, and then it also creates that high voltage resonance.
With regards to synergizing your coils with LED grow lights, what are some of the performance increases you have measured and come to expect?
So that's again, we can drive large panels of LEDs using a few watts of power. And we've used red and blue LEDs, we've used white LEDs, we've used, but in more particular, red and blue LEDs is what you would use for agriculture. The blue activates the seeds, the red activates blossoming. So you're using red and blue, purple light, and you're also using the magnetic potential to enhance the growth of whatever it is that you're growing. You can sit it right up on top of the coil and drive the lights sitting above that, or, it could be a number of different configurations, but that's basically how it's done. Red and blue.
I've even seen them take
actually, can I get that
gauge wire.
We'll take your back.
May I have this back?
I have a question
Round
regarding
potted plant.
everything we're talking about
Steal it.
magnetic polarization.
Yes.
Can I come up?
Yeah, please.
So I'm curious if you can see, I have two norths over here. And I don't need this right here. So I have both norths on this side, on the just iron ferrite. It's about 400 permeability. And on the other side, it should be, take these off side. So that's too fast. So we have all south on this end and all north on this end. Very similar to some Floyd suite or other concepts. What I'm curious about is if it's all north, it's magnetized all north in this polarity, and on the other end, the south is not fully magnetized, showing that the south doesn't fully magnetize this iron bar, which is the same permeability as the other iron bar, as well as it's fully magnetized on the north. And when I what?
That's intense.
Yeah, so with that, then I'm also curious if you go down to the southern hemisphere, if that's going to switch. And then the other thing is if I saturate the ends of them, depending on different alignments, I can actually get a, you know how if you take one of these units, you put it directly at the blocked wall, you can get it to slightly oscillate, which I'm not able to do right now, of course. I've been very curious. I've been able to move the blocked wall, it looks like, in these magnets just through straight permanent magnet saturation, static fields. So I'm just curious what is happening with that, and why is it that there's complete north saturation over not complete south saturation?
I'm actually not sure, to be honest with you. I do not know. That's the first time I've seen that. So I wouldn't be able to answer that question. If anyone else in the room is able to answer that question, I'm not sure.
On your
That's
blotch,
very interesting. Very interesting. We're going to
your
have to
blotch
look into
wall
that.
will
Floyd
change
vacuum
with
triode
magnets.
amplifier
If you
does
take
use
two
or
magnets
supposedly
and put
use
them
a
north,
specific
south, north,
method
south,
for
and move
pulsing
them apart.
and
The
creating a
blotch wall
magnet
will go
in a
from one
specific
magnet
way.
to the other. And I don't know if it has to do with magnetic strength. It would be one smidgen stronger on one side than the other, but you can pull them back together. The other thing you can do with blotch walls that I've done is stack many, many magnets, and it always goes to the center. If the magnets are basically the same strength, your blotch wall, so you got one magnet that's north-south like a nickel. The heads is north and the south is pardon me, south. And you stack them together, the blotch wall always stays in the middle.
And this is why we're here for Breakthrough Energy. When one person doesn't have the answer, there will be someone else with the
Because when you
answer.
stack the magnets, you're moving that pressure differential.
I'm going to have to take that over.
Just
We'll
moving
definitely
it.
talk more after this all. Yeah.
And the ether's flowing from that those two pressure
I'm just,
differentials.
You may want
Here, show them where
we
the
have
blotch
many
wall
questions.
Here, this is north, south, makes the middle one in the middle here.
is. Now, if I take another magnet and put it in between here, the blotch wall will now move to here. Show them. Yeah.
Okay. And then, totally. Yeah, right. Right here, or honestly, these aren't the best units. It's really sad. This is what it is. But there are better units to test magnetic field alignment.
I've done it very competently, and the blotch wall always goes to the middle. It seems like, yes.
No, it always does. What I'm curious with is I've got similar things where in this thing, last Tesla Tech, someone made a monopole demonstration with a rodent coil. And using this exact same unit, it did the same pulsing as a blotch wall that was happening. It was the same thing. It was a whole just north coil.
And we also we experienced that same pulsing before. So if we were to put the coil at a specific frequency, it could be pulsing at, let's say, 144.
Somehow in their configuration, they were
we will
producing a
experience a
north.
different type of
Maybe they
pulsing
weren't getting
effect,
the over-UV.
as
I'm
if
curious to
the
see
magnetic
the
energy is pulsing at 4 hertz for whatever reason as an undertone. I have no idea why that happens.
This has done that as well. So I'm curious, combining static and dynamic energies.
Did you measure the magnetic field like around the coil?
Yes.
Like I think if you measure it and if you measure the intensity and direction, you can plot out the magnetic field, the field lines. So
Definitely. We actually, when the coils are in resonance, we can walk away from the unit with this little device. It's called a tri-field meter. And we can detect that when that coil is in maximum resonance, we can move 20 feet away from the coil and still be able to detect the strong magnetic energy. So it would be wonderful to see full color imaging or different type of high-tech imaging to actually see the energy that's coming out of it. a better visual is definitely needed in the future. So that's something that we look forward to accomplishing.
You may be able to use a ferrofluid to demonstrate that.
Ferrofluid has no effect in the middle. We did try it. Yeah, there's no response in ferrofluid.
A little bit.
Put it on a TV screen like the old television, the glass tube. Can you see it there perhaps?
We haven't tried it on a television screen.
Magnetic paper.
So they couldn't get any response with the ferrofluid.
It forms a spiral,
I'm curious to see if my coil can.
You can, yeah, we've taken pictures of that. I'd love to see that photo. Yes, definitely.
Okay, it seems that time is up, but we will have a table outside where we will have the time to connect it and everybody can come and experience the magnetic fields and see the lighting inverters for themselves, okay?
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much.
So that was the groundbreaking conference that I stumbled upon that led me to research the rodent coil further. And it was over the course of maybe a year or so, a little over a year, that I went on this journey from start to finish. And after this conference, when I was doing my research with the coil and determining how I was going to proceed with the coil design, you know, gathering the resources, the frames, the material, and all that, I stumbled upon this documentary called Randy's Donuts. And if you haven't seen this, we're going to watch it. It is an amazing documentary. But first, we're going to take a quick break because I got to go to the bathroom. Got to pee.
With this design, there is a slight smell of burnt air, but almost no sense of carbon emissions when putting your nose directly up to the exhaust. The brilliance of Bendel's design is in its simplicity and ability to replicate natural phenomenon. Further proof that nature is the most efficient energy machine. This is a plasmoid thunderstorm generator gas engine retrofit and industrial engine retrofit. They are proof of concepts for clean and efficient energy. This retrofit will turn any carbon engine into clean and super efficient oxygen factories using only gas for the initial start of the engine. For more details on how the Bendel engine works or how plasmoids are the future of renewable clean energy, subscribe to my TikTok or YouTube channel. I constantly push the bar by introducing you to forbidden and obscure knowledge. Take the red pill and subscribe now. Throughout modern history, there have been visionaries who dared to dream beyond the boundaries of conventional science. Inventors who sought to unlock the mysteries of alternative propulsion, anti-gravitics, and the enigma of over-unity energy. Yet, their stories remain shrouded in shadow. Many of these pioneers, their voices silenced, their visions extinguished. Some vanished into obscurity, while others paid the ultimate price. Suppression, it seems, has been a constant companion to innovation. But recently, there's been a glimmer of hope. A new generation of self-taught, open-minded, and independent scientists has emerged. A collective effort to combat the forces that seek to keep humanity in the dark. People like Marco Rodin, whose rediscovery of vortex-based mathematics is nothing short of mind-bending. They've pushed the boundaries of mathematical understanding, opening doors to a new realm of possibilities by describing numbers as physical stationary interstitiary vectors in space-time whose values don't change. Unlike traditional mathematics, where numbers change while functions remain constant, this paradigm shift recognizes that in reality, functions themselves can represent the changing variables, opening doors to a new understanding of mathematical relationships. And then there's Malcolm Bendall, a man with a vision that defies convention. He introduced the plasmoid unified model, a concept that calculates the resonant frequencies of everything from the elements to colors, shapes, and even polarized cardinal directions. But Bendall didn't stop at theory. He applied his unified field theory to a revolutionary concept, converting mass into clean energy. His ingenious design mimics nature's use of plasma, producing colossal amounts of pristine energy. Bendall's vision goes beyond energy. It's about reshaping our understanding of the world and harnessing the very forces of nature to propel us into a new era. As Tesla was once accredited as saying, throughout space there is energy. Is this energy static or kinetic? If static, our hopes are in vain. If kinetic, and this we know it is for certain, then it is a mere question of time when men will succeed in attaching their machinery to the very wheelwork of nature. In the shadows of suppressed technology, these visionaries are opening doors to a brighter, more sustainable future. The plasmoid engine, a symbol of hope, innovation, and the relentless pursuit of the unknown. Join us as we delve deeper into the mysteries of plasmoids and the brave souls who dare to challenge the status quo. Here on Divine Science. Stay tuned for our brand new show. For more videos on consciousness, zero-point energy, and other forms of forbidden knowledge, like and subscribe to my YouTube and TikTok channels. What are you waiting for? Take the red pill and arm yourself with forbidden knowledge. Subscribe today.
This video was bang on brilliant.
All right, and we're back. And I'm going to do this quick documentary. It's about 20 minutes. Then I'm going to go over my results, and I'm going to end the stream. And then I might be back later for some testing if I have time.
The film you're about to watch is about vortex math. It's so easy, even I get it.
It's cute.
Here's the challenge that we have. We don't yet have the technological breakthroughs that can completely replace fossil fuels. So for the next 10 years, next 20 years, we're still going to be using oil. We're still going to be using coal. We're still going to be using natural gas. We're still going to be using the traditional sources to fuel our cars, to heat our homes, to run our big power plants, etc. Unless somebody here invents something tomorrow, which would be very helpful. And if you have it, let me know.
With all due respect, Mr. President, this is me letting you know.
With all due respect, Mr. Powell, he doesn't give an F.
I'm here representing the Vortex-based mathematics project, which was founded by my teacher, Marco Rodin. Almost 40 years ago, Marco discovered an unknown mathematical language inherent to nature, and I found the key of how to model it in three-dimensional space. The saying is that mathematics is the language of God, but until now, no one's been speaking God's language.
I went and read the Bible, I went and read the Quran, I went and read the Torah, and I decided to start to read any of the world's major religions. I went and studied on Buddhism. I studied being on a stage, which was really a pleasure.
So this inspired a journey for him, and he began to search through all the different ancient knowledges of the world, all the different religions of the world, and he found this common thread throughout, that they all seemed to be onto this, right? And there seemed to be this common thread that throughout all the religions, the most sacred and holy and cherished thing was the name of God, and the intonation of the name of God. I'm here speaking because I'm at the forefront right now of the most advanced mathematics.
Oh, this was the banned TED Talk,
because
everybody.
My teacher, Marco Rodin, discovered an unknown
linked on my
mathematical
website.
language inherent to nature.
They never released
and
this.
I found the key of how to model it in
Dirty
three-dimensional
jerks.
space. The saying is that mathematics is the language of God, but until now, no one's been speaking God's language. What we have is the grand unified field theory. With it, you can create inexhaustible free energy, end all diseases, produce unlimited food, travel anywhere in the universe, build the ultimate supercomputer, artificial intelligence, and obsolete all existing technology. How is it possible to make such outrageous claims? Because we have the secret that connects all of the world's technologies together, numbers. We discovered that numbers are real, a living language, a jigsaw puzzle that when pieced together no longer creates a rendition or approximation of reality. Numbers are reality. Neither flat, nor arbitrary, nor imaginary, nor irrational. They are actually points or locations that fold out into a 3D shape, defining space and time literally. Mr. Rodin discovered an equation that was so eloquent in its simplicity that it involved no more than 9 numbers around a circle. And with it, you can do all the functions of all the branches of math instantly. It displays a perfect spin symmetry of numbers, forming mirror images just like our two hands. a feat that's baffled countless scientists and mathematicians. When you look at this symbol, you immediately see it's composed of two aspects. One is this lazy 8, or the infinity symbol, and the other is the red pyramid at the top. The infinity symbol is the equation
It doesn't
for the
matter how
physical
many
world we
times
live
you
in.
divide
It's a circuit
9
or
by
a
itself,
pathway of
it'll
motion.
always add to 9.
6 numbers that form a hexagon. Thus, such diverse phenomena as light polarizing, beehives, Saturn's North Pole, and snowflakes are all versions of this hexagon. These shapes form pathways for any matter in motion, which is never straight, but always at an angle. Nothing in the physical world ever moves in a straight line, not a bullet shooting, not lightning coming down out of the sky. Everything is a coil, even a photon coming from a distant star, proving relativity exists. Our body is called this mortal coil. Our DNA is a coil, and it's no coincidence that it matches our equation perfectly. It makes us into a vortex machine that sucks things in at the top and shoots them out at the bottom. As it does this, it regulates its own temperature, a really important concept for technologies that are always overheating. It's an imploding, exploding machine, a gyroscope, an antenna built to perfectly transmit and receive waveforms. In fact, Marco's antenna designs are protecting the four corners of the United States because they were found to be the most sensitive antennas ever created. Around the same time, he also presented at the largest genetic engineering conference in the world on DNA sequencing, thus proving the ability of this math to cross between the sciences. Jonas Salk, who was the inventor of the polio vaccine, stated that this work was so advanced it would never be understood in Marco's lifetime unless he cloned himself. And so maybe that's what I am. But what's the connection between all these sciences? And the answer is simple. It's doubling. When you follow what these numbers are doing, you get doubling. And why might that be significant? Well, our cells double to create us. We have one cell, conceptions, 2, 4, 8, 16, 32. Musical scales are doubling. The binary code for computers is doubling. Nuclear reactions, squares and square roots, all doubling. Doubling is motion at an angle, or what's called angular momentum. It's the whirlwind and treadmill of creation. It spins the atoms in our body, the Earth on its axis, the solar system, galaxy, the whole universe. And so what causes this doubling? What is it that's being transmitted and received? And that's where that red pyramid comes in. This pyramid is representative of what we call flux fields. We have electricity. At the center of electricity is magnetism. At the center of magnetism is a flux. It's a higher dimensional energy known by many names such as dark energy, tachyons, monopoles, gravitons. We call it etheron energy. It's the energy that's keeping us conscious and alive, and it's not a static or stationary energy. It's a pulse, it's a surge, it's the beating heart of all existence. It's the ultimate fundamental particle in the universe, the God particle, and I know how to harness it. This energy is the source of all time, motion, and vibration. It's the only thing that comes from the whole, or the zero, the center of the cyclone. It emanates linearly in all directions, penetrating everything without any resistance. It cannot be shielded. As it penetrates, it leaves a grain. It shows you how things move, how they stick together or come apart. It animates everything. It's the source of the non-decaying spin of the electron. If you combine it with a coil, you get a perfect mathematical vortex consisting of a positive electromagnetic energy radiating out and a negative backdraft counter space, which is the same as gravity. It allows for contraction. Etherons are literally the glue that holds the universe together. Einstein called it an inertia ether. Ultimately, when this is arrayed in true 3D shape, which is what I discovered, it forms a shape commonly known as a torus or a donut. This is nearly 20 years later. What I found was this. Essentially, this thing is a heat sink. It's a temperature regulator, just like your human body. The universal geometry designed for maximum efficiency and energy transformation, and an ecological method by which the universe reprocesses matter, using it as a coolant source to bathe itself at the core of a black hole and then dissipate heat away out of a white hole. It's based on compression, decompression, just like we use to control temperatures in technologies like refrigerators. The Big Bang was just one of these reactions giving birth to this expanding universe, which is expanding because we're on the southern half. The northern half is contracting. Okay? Space expands, time contracts, black hole to white hole. The torus is what everything becomes at its maximum acceleration. This experiment you're going to watch while I finish my talk, I want you to keep in mind when you're watching this magnet spinning around, there's no energy going into this coil. It's totally turned off. And I'll continue. Your blood cells are a torus. DNA is a torus. Magnetic fields, galaxies, all toruses. That's why a tornado is more powerful than an atom bomb. It's a one-way living, systemic electrical machine. a self-sustaining jet, you might say a flying saucer. I found the way to calculate this torus in a perfect 3D, 4D, and higher mathematical hologram that can be scaled up and down to infinity, and which we now call the Abha torus.
Look
or
at
sometimes
this.
we refer to it by Marco's name,
This
which
is
is the flux thruster,
absolutely
atom pulsar,
insane.
electrical venturi, space-time implosion field generator coil. And with it, it's possible to create a localized space-time implosion, a controlled desktop black hole. That magnet's still spinning. There's no energy in the coil. This is the final technology, the Philosopher's Stone, a reactionless drive unaffected by any weight that it carries. It's a true model of an atom, and with it I have the key to the periodic table, which a professor from the University of North Carolina told me
Hear
could
it
be the
winding
greatest
up?
scientific discovery of all time. We can, for the first time, cross from one science to another, unbroken, whether it's subatomic physics, periodic table, computer science, DNA. Remember, I said cure all diseases, artificial intelligence, all the result of ether-on flux fields. And so simply put, this torus does it all. It's a blueprint for a perfectly efficient magnetic field generating coil, a spaceship, a surgical tool, a supercomputer, and even a high-fidelity speaker all in one. Are such things possible? Frankly, yes, they are. And my team is ready to develop
That's what I'm trying to do with
at
my
any
coil.
time.
We're close.
What you see
We're
here
close.
was just from the most primitive
I think he's using the Schumann resonance.
approximation of my work. But the truth and reality of our project is it suffered from a tremendous lack of attention. We want to turn it into the hands of the people to produce and save the whole world. Thank you very much.
That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Trying to keep the information flowing. It's up to you guys. Yeah, Mike, that is weird. It's very weird. It's all a number grid. It's just being rotated.
This information is not to be privatized or exclusively owned by any corporation or individual. Instead, it is our desire to create an open source project
This right
to freely
here.
share information with the public. This device is a version of what we call the Abha torus, developed by Daniel and Erica Nunez.
Hello everyone, this is Daniel Nunez with OneStopEnergies.com. Today I'm going to show you a free energy work in the progress. So let's check this out. We're using vortex coils today, and let's look up on the roof. That's an old antenna, and that old antenna is not being used because nobody uses that type of television antenna anymore. So what we're doing here is we're running that wire down from the antenna over down this way into our PoE Mini. And what's happening here is that we're collecting the energy from the antenna with this little simple circuit for rectifying radio wave signals. So what we're doing is we're collecting electricity.
I like how they include the circuit diagram. It's
over
very
here.
important.
So as I change the frequency, I'll be able to generate more power, because right now I'm actually using less power. So resistance is all the way down. The coil is not resonating right now. So I'm able to charge up my little capacitors over here. So you're looking at the DC voltage, that's 1.9 volts, and that's charging up those two little capacitors there. And these are buffering capacitors, so those regulate the frequencies. The little black diodes, they force energy in one direction, so it creates a mandatory charge into those two capacitors. Now I have a different circuit. This is the same SEC circuit we've been running for pretty much majority of our experiments. I've got a 1 mega ohm potentiometer on there and a 3.4 volt LED. So you can see we're already charged up to 2 volts. And let's go ahead and spike this energy. This is all free energy, and let's give it the right frequency. And I'm just turning that little knob.
Adjusting the
There you go.
potentiometer to try to tune
So you saw the flash. That discharged my capacitors, and now they're charging back up again. And let's look for that frequency again. There it goes. Discharge my capacitors. Let's do it again. So I'm lowering the frequency and then raising it back up. So give it a little charging time there. There it goes. That's a spike of free energy.
But essentially, this is defining a pathway for matter in motion, the path of least resistance. And numerically, that's defined by doubling. Okay, so that's one aspect of what this equation is. It's defining a doubling sequence. Now, then we have this 396. Well, what's the 396? Well, if you look into studying physics, you know, there's really only two things you can study, right? If you look up the definition of physics, it's defined as the study of matter in motion. Of course, then what is putting matter in motion? What is causing the matter to move? What is the source of time, motion, and vibration? And that's where you get to the number 9. Okay? But before I go to the number 9, I want to talk about 3 and 6. Well, what are 3 and 6? Okay? 3 and 6 represent the absolute extremes. They end in the middle of nowhere, and as an engineer friend of ours says, nothing mechanical does that. Okay? Everything mechanical connects to something else. Nothing mechanical ends in the middle of nowhere. The 3 and the 6 do that. Interestingly, 3 doubled, if you double 3, following the same process, is 6. 6 doubled is 12. 2 and 1 is 3. 12 doubled is 24, which equals 6. 24 doubled is 48, which equals 3, right? They oscillate back and forth. Now, the only thing that we know that oscillates is magnetism. And that is really essentially what this is defining. The other aspect of physics, other than matter and motion, are what we call fields, which are a lot more mysterious. You know, they have these properties like non-locality, perhaps. They seem to, in many ways, defy a lot of the boundaries we've set around what matter can actually do. Fields seem to be to have different properties.
Some of those testing observations?
Testing observations. Controllable low voltage ozone production, multiple magnetic monopole detection, energy gains using a 1-to-1 ratio, 1-to-1 ratio coils, coil sensitivity to the Earth's magnetic field, bioelectric interactions with the coil, energy reduction when charging batteries or spinning magnets, synchronization of multiple rotors at different axes, plasma excitation through the center of a vortex coil, increased growth rates in plants around coils, self-cooling properties when running high voltage, very large magnetic fields for little input power, 576 LEDs illuminated using only 1 watt of power, and many more.
Here we see the number grid of Marco Rodin's Vortex Mag mapped onto the by Randy Powell. probably using a technique like stereographic projection.
I'm
I'm
Nunez
assuming.
with OneStopEnergies.com, and today I'm going to show you how to make your own PoE vortex coil design.
This is a video I have linked in my do-it-yourself guide. It is very essential
50 feet
if you
away
want
from
to
each
try to
other.
recreate some of the experiments that I'm
Step
doing,
2.
which are
Secure the
basically
entire wire around the
experiments that they did. I'll be doing a workshop soon.
Now walk
I
the
know
wire
Nathan
back
from
and
Old Man
forth
Builds
24
printed me
times.
a spare frame, so when that gets here, we'll do a workshop, and I really appreciate that, Nathan. That is amazing. Well done, sir. Yeah, the process is a little tedious, but
Snip the wire from
with
the
some
spool
practice and some
tie
technique,
it around the bundle.
you can get it to about maybe 2 to 5 hours, depending on how fast you are.
Tightly. Step 6. Get your wireless drill and connect your hook to it. Step 7. Now it's time to twist. Step 8. Now that
Yeah, see how slowly they're doing it. I think I did mine a little too fast and too tight. And a spool is useful, but make sure it is small enough to fit through the door of the donut or frame that you have, because if you spool it up, there's no use for you spooling it up if you can't fit it through the hole.
We will begin by doing the counterclockwise wind first. Up and over. When it met the starting point, you're just going to skip one above it. Step 10. When you meet the starting point, now you may begin the clockwise wind. Just note that after the very first loop, you will be going directly under the starting point. Step 11. Now that the winding is complete, it is time to take the torch and melt off the enamel at the end of the wire. We are melting
You want to
off
torch it
the
first
enamel,
because,
so when it's time to solder, it's easier to make the connections.
yeah, if you just solder, it's going to be harder to solder it off, and you're just going to end up ruining the connections.
Step 12. Now it's time to sand the ends and remove the burnt enamel.
This is a delicate process because if you're going to be doing testing with these leads, you don't want to mess with them too much. You know, again, microfractures can screw them up and render them unable to carry a charge, electrical
Alligator
current.
clip and your multimeter. Take your alligator clip and connect it to any of the wires.
A little bit of extra is useful. I
Right now,
made the mistake
we
and I
have
didn't
48
even my leads
wires.
out. That's very important because you lose track of the leads. There's a lot.
So
There's
being that it
24
made the
here on each
connection,
side.
this is the finish, when this is the start. Take the finished wire and connect it to any other wire.
And basically what we're doing here is we're taking them in series and making 2 channels.
And you're going to repeat this process 11 times. So now that I finished with channel A, this makes it 1 wire. And I'm going to proceed to doing the same thing I did with these 11
So 12 in
connections
series,
on
each channel, totaling 24.
That sounds is
She has them
channel
separated.
B completed. Now for step 14.
What she doesn't really show here, though, is that each channel has its own output lead, not just the bottom one. The top one has the 2 output leads that aren't connected as well.
For step 15, get electrical tape and put it around
At
the
least
ends
that's
of the
what I
wire that was
determined.
soldered
Maybe she doesn't.
to avoid the connections touching. Now that you have successfully finished wiring and connecting your PoE Vortex coil, it is time for testing. We're going to take channel A and connect it to the amplifier, and channel B and connect it to the amplifier. Now for the last 2 wires that are remaining, they are going to be connected to the 192 LED panel.
Yeah, that's connected through the load. This is the Nunez method.
Turn it on, and voila.
And what does that tone generator say? It says like what, 124 kilohertz, I think? Or maybe it's 24 kilohertz.
Thank you very much for your time. This is Erica Nunez with OneStopEnergies.com. Please share and spread the word. Many blessings.
Oh, so that's 2 neodymium spheres on the parabolic bowl shape there. And we have 2 PoE coils stacked on top of each other. I wonder if one of them is just a pickup. It's not connected. Yeah, I think you're right. No, yeah, it's 2 per channel, 2 leads, 1 input, 1 output. And that's how I have mine hooked up, but I can't resonate it past 24 kilohertz, and I think my resonant range is a little higher. Oh no, there's a power limitation. That's fine. I did find a little pocket. No, we'll go over the conclusions in a minute here. I have them all written down in my analysis. Now this is where things get interesting.
Just this humble little device implies more about the laws of physics than most, if not all, expensive technologies on the market today. And now I've found the key of how to model it in 3-dimensional space. The importance of this discovery cannot be underestimated. With it, I believe we can create inexhaustible clean energy, produce unlimited food, end all diseases, travel anywhere in the universe, build the ultimate supercomputer, and obsolete all existing technology. How is it possible that we make such outrageous claims? It's because we have the secret that connects all the world's technologies into one: numbers. A living language, a jigsaw puzzle that when pieced together no longer forms an approximation or a rendition of reality. Numbers are reality.
Alright, so this is the new setup. We have the coil all covered up.
This is another experiment
looking
we're going to be
beautiful
doing
in her
probably
base.
in the not the
So
near
what we're
future.
doing here is we're running a 12-volt battery, and we're charging that 12-volt battery with a solar panel. And while it's charging, it's discharging higher voltage to turn on these lights. But the interesting part is
This is something I'd like to try for phase 2.
it charges
of testing.
faster than it can discharge. And this is without using an inverter. So basically what you see is what you get. You have a 12-volt panel that's charging the battery. The battery is going through this box, which is creating a sound frequency, and the coil is able to harness the ether or the subtle energy in order to convert it into usable electricity at higher voltage, higher amperage, so that we're still able to charge the battery even though we're using electricity. So by the time the sun runs out, we'll be able to run these lights for the whole entire evening, and when the sun comes back, it'll charge up the battery once again. So this is kind of like one of these little solar panel garden lights, except this is on steroids. So I just wanted to share that with you all. And blessings, take care, and thanks for watching.
Humanity doesn't have to have a dark future, and it's not going anywhere that we don't steer it. We have a technology in our hands that can boom the market of alternative energy, solar cells, and electric vehicles, and change our world forever. We have already achieved the impossible, but now we need your help to make the impossible an everyday experience.
Alright, with that, we're going to quickly go over the closing of my presentation. We're not going to go over First Stop Energy's collection. I included that here in our presentation link. If you would all like to peruse through that, it's a treasure trove of amazing photos and videos of various PoE vortex coil designs, along with captions and descriptions from First Stop Energies, including clips of their experiments, inventions, fringe science research, and theories from Daniel. So, at this point in my research, I thought to myself, if there was any legitimacy to the claims of the coil, then someone ought to be looking into it. I didn't find anybody who was actually attempting to replicate the work, publicly at least, accurately. And I've seen various YouTubers attempt to debunk the rodent coil, and when you watch these videos after reading my coil guide, you can immediately notice their mistakes. And I'm talking to you, Mr. Robert Murray Smith. Very lazy work. He basically slapped together one of these things and hooked it up in one way without doing any research on resonance or various coil designs and frames and various ways of hooking up the coil, which there are many, many different types of frames and connections that you can do. And he just did one and it's like, oh, it doesn't work. So it's, I debunked it. Good work there, Mr. Smith. All right. So, one of the most common mistakes I see in the coil is that it requires at least 2 channels. At least for me, that's what I've experienced in my research. According to Daniel Nunez, the energy needs to flow clockwise in one channel and counterclockwise in the other. 180-degree phase shift. Although, in retrospect, this might be just for the 10 times maximum voltage output, because I did see a 1-to-2 ratio voltage while maintaining the current with just the induction method, which does not have the energy flowing in counter-directional rotations. But if you think about it in this way, there is an interference pattern to the coil. So it is actually traveling both clockwise and counterclockwise. So this creates the 2 counter-rotating magnetic fields that compress each other's geometry in a specific way. Daniel also mentioned the number of winds being significant and that having evenly spaced bundles such as a manufactured VGA cable will, and I quote, change everything. So anybody out there who has that manufacturing capability, keep that in mind. If you look at Daniel's advanced 432 coil, it has multiple winds and channels, but the wires are all evenly and delicately placed so that they are perfectly symmetrical. Perhaps this asymmetry or imperfection is what causes the ozone pipe product. I haven't determined that yet. In order to obtain the 10 times voltage output, it has been discovered that the Nunez method does work, but you must use an open circuit where channel A and channel B are connected through the load, and we have 2 counter-rotating channels along with the interference pattern of our wind. Another common mistake is that the wires in your bundle need to not only be tightly packed and twisted, but soldered together in series. For my coil, I have 12 wires in series for each channel, totaling 24 wires. although one did break due to microfractures in the manufacturing process that forced me to disconnect one from the second channel to balance the field, leading to a total of 11 per channel instead of the 12. So after studying Daniel and Erica Nunez work for over a year, I was confident that I could replicate their experiments. However, I was almost positive it would take me at least that long to get any kind of results. I was very wrong. About 3 weeks after hooking up the coil and tuning it, I got amazing effects. Yeah, for about 2-3 weeks, nothing happened. I was trying to connect it in certain ways, and I tried the Nunez method, but I couldn't get the tone to generate the frequency high enough. And you'll find that out later. I did find a little pocket above 20 kilohertz, which was my threshold for the tone generator I was using. And I was able to nearly confirm everything Daniel claims about the vortex coil, and the phenomena I haven't been able to confirm yet is only due to the lack of resources or time or both. So basically, we have a lot of positive results and a lot of confirmations about what Daniel Nunez says in his Breakthrough Energy Movement Conference is real. It's all true. At least on the surface. And from what I've researched and tested, at least, I have not been able to confirm the healing properties and some of the some of the other effects that he described in the conference due to, as I said, lack of resources, time, or both. I am working a full-time job. But if you look at my preliminary analysis of the zero-point energy system, while I had enormous success in over-unity production with the coil, 155% efficiency, which is 0.9 watts going in and 1.4 watts going out, while powering a small DC motor and 3 LEDs at 800 hertz square waveform. Sine also works, but square seems to maximize the effect, but it also leaves the signal unstable, so make sure you use a rectifier for anything DC. Anyways, the over-unity ratio of 1 to 2 volts seems consistent within a certain resonant frequency range, increasing on the output as you tune into the correct frequency. For my coil, it was around 300 hertz to 3 kilohertz. And it was kind of like phasing in and out, so I suspect there are pockets there. And we'll come back to that in a minute. Once that range threshold has been crossed, the voltage drops again, and the output, on the output, like it should, based on conventional science. So you see, less out than in. However, and the circuits reflect this, by the way, and you've seen this in my live streams where, when we're outside the resonant range, the fan just doesn't spin as fast on the output. It drops with the voltage, the meter, like it's the meter's reading accurate. However, I was not able to do this with the Nunez method. Unless my setup is somehow operating as an open circuit, I am just not informed enough to be aware. There is also the possibility that there are inaccuracies in my wire bundle and wind that could have resulted in odd or different behavior than expected from Nunez experiments. Keep in mind, this is my preliminary analysis. This is what I wrote a couple weeks ago. I was able to almost capture the magnetic moment of the field with the neodymium sphere, but I might need more accurate equipment with a higher frequency resolution to fully replicate that experiment, as it was only contained within the vortex and it didn't seem to affect the sphere outside, like some of the other videos we see, like Jack Scholl's. Or this could be an input power problem, as my stereo is only capable of 50 volts RMS per channel, and the receiver power supply is designed to regulate the voltage output within that specific range. If the output exceeds that range, the receiver's power supply may not be able to handle it, and it may try to clamp or short the output to prevent damage to the amplifier or components. Basically, this shuts down consistently at 48 on the gain, the volume knob, which goes up to 63, by the way. That's the max for the system, is programmed to. It clamps down at 48, which is way before the gain programmed in the system at 63 on the volume knob. Interesting. This adds more evidence that there's actually more output, as the energy returns is overloading the system at lower than expected power levels. Again, this is a stereo amp receiver. It's programmed to receive the energy. It's not expecting to receive more. So here's my conclusions from all this. Some exciting developments in the area of magnetic synchronicity. I've been trying to nail this one for a while, and I believe I have the solution to this. Going back over the strongest effects that I have seen regarding the Rodin coil's magnetic field in the neodymium sphere, which fits the Tor and complements the coil's field geometry, the strongest effect happens at around 7 Hertz. It starts spinning really fast. Like, the RPMs are insane. You can see on some of my videos, it's... my tone generator does not go below 20 Hertz, so I had to go on YouTube and manually find these frequencies and try them one by one, which made this a little bit more tedious. Again, I'm operating with very limited resources, very limited equipment. Nothing seemed to be doing anything above 8 Hertz. I did some research, and it turns out there are theories of the ether that includes glass as an amplification for the ether. In retrospect, both videos we see magnetic synchronicity happen, one from Jack Scholes and the other one from Daniel Nunez, both have glass as a container for the neodymium sphere. So I decided to finally test this, and we saw this live on live stream a couple days ago. I put the tone on 7 Hertz, but nothing unusual. It was spinning, but not retaining the spin. Then I had an idea. I thought if I could find a video with a clean sine wave of the Schumann resonance, then I might be able to solve the synchronicity issue. I found a video and I put it on, and what happened was amazing. When I turned on the Schumann resonance and put the neodymium sphere in the center, it started vibrating and going back and forth slowly, which was very odd. It usually just spins fast or just vibrates, doesn't go. But it was going like this. It was going... like it wanted to go all the way around, but it wasn't enough power. It was very odd. I suspected due to the power limitations of the stereo receiver, I don't think it was able to spin 360 degrees on its own. So I gave it a little spin with my hand, and what happened was amazing. The lights and fans started spinning like crazy on my output circuit, and the voltage spiked on the output. It induced a large amount of current and powered the output load quite nicely with very little effort. I was not able to capture this up close on video, but I will be trying to do this again in the near future. Then something even more amazing happened. When I took the sphere outside of the vortex, it started vibrating the glass outside the entire donut structure of the coil. And we've seen this on live stream. Something that's not supposed to happen. Remember, the magnetic field is condensed and contained inside the Tor, inside the vortex of the donut. So it shouldn't have any kind of magnetic effect outside, and it doesn't with normal magnets. I've tested them extensively. But the shape of the neodymium sphere complements the field geometry created by the coil in such a way that, in my opinion, can actually induce synchronicity outside of the affected radius, combined with the glass as an amplification for the aether energy, which is everywhere, right? So it would appear that the aether may, in fact, be amplified by the glass container. I think it also has something to do with it being in resonance with the Schumann cavity. I'm not entirely sure as to the mechanisms for this effect, but I'm confident that increasing the power limitations of the system will, in fact, produce a full synchronicity between the two magnetic fields, and we will be able to reproduce that, experiment where Jack Scholes takes the sphere, outside and he powers down the coil entirely. So I think that's just a matter of a power limitation right now. This is all very exciting times in my research, and I highly suggest you check out some of my live streams where, with a little help from my friends, I'm discovering this stuff in real time. Regarding the Nunez method, though, my conclusions for the Nunez method. This is also very exciting. The open circuit will not power any load outside of 400 hertz, except when in really high frequency. I saw a small pocket of energy around 21050 hertz. This tells me it is actually capable of powering a load like this and goes against conventional teachings of circuitry. And again, I don't have this in my conclusion here because I wasn't sure if my multimeters were actually picking up the voltage correctly. But at this resonance, we were seeing microvolts 10 times on the output. I couldn't read the current, but the microvolts did read, what was it, like 12 on the input and 120 on the output at 21050 hertz. And that, remember, my cap was 20 kilohertz for a long time for testing. And I was like, oh, frustrated. Like, why can't I get the Nunez method to work? This is why. It turns out that henceforth, we will not be able to conclude our analysis on the Nunez method until we A, utilize more sensitive multimeters rated for higher frequencies, 20 kilohertz and above, and B, get a better tone generator program that can generate more than 24 kilohertz. I have a feeling the resonant frequency for my coil will be higher than expected due to the loss of material via 2 disconnected wires from the bundle. Remember, less material, higher frequency. But again, it might be that 2150. And at this time, I can confidently conclude that there is observably more energy on the output with the exact same amount going into the coil and into our reference circuit not connected to the coil. There should be no situation where the output lights and fan turn on while the input doesn't at all. If there's the same amount of power going in, and I tested it with the multimeter, same amount of power, this goes against conventional science and leads me to believe over-unity has been achieved. However, due to the limitations of my equipment and the exact amount achieved is debatable. We also see this effect only within our resonance ranges. Outside those ranges, we see less output as expected in traditional systems. I'm still not able to confirm if this is the Nunez design acting as it's supposed to due to the lack of information we have from the subject from First Stop Energies and their videos that have been taken down off YouTube, or might this be some kind of anomaly with my coil, possibly with the manufacturing process? This is why I need more people to replicate and try to see if this coil is acting like it's supposed to based on the claims, or if there's some kind of unique phenomenon with my coil specifically. Again, we do have the do-it-yourself guide linked into the description. I do have an idea that we might be able to map and predict the resonant ranges of each coil based on the length and weight of conductor being used. And my hypothesis is based on some preliminary calculations that signify, and get this, we might be seeing harmonics in the form of phi ratio, the golden ratio, as octave multipliers to the initial resonant frequency. You understand what that means? That means instead of the traditional octave multipliers of, what is there, 7 notes or whatever, and then you get another octave, it repeats or whatever, we're multiplying octaves by the phi ratio. This is just based on preliminary calculations. It might not be accurate, but it does seem to align up with the pockets of resonance that I see in my coil using the phi ratio. And guess where the 21050 lands? The third harmonic. It's just something crazy to think about that could be true. I don't know if it's true, but it aligns with all the theories of the coil. Some of the initial math with a little help from Chat AI showed me that the third harmonic landing in the same area that we see the Nunez open circuit light up at the high frequency. In that tiny pocket of energy, we see around 21050 hertz. Again, my coil is utilizing 2 less wires in series than the video tutorial suggests. We only have 11 wires in each channel, meaning the predicted range of resonance in the diagram is going to be slightly higher than our resonance for the coil, as we are using less material, thus having a slightly higher resonant frequency, because, again, frequency is about cavity. You know, it's about resonance. So the smaller cavity you have to resonate something, the higher the frequency is going to be. It makes sense, right? Think of a ping pong ball bouncing back and forth between two walls. The farther apart the walls, the slower the bounce will be back and forth. The frequency of the ball's cycle from wall to wall would be lower than if we, say, shrink those walls and move them closer. Now the ball moves faster back and forth with a higher frequency. This is all that I can conclude thus far with my limited equipment and resources. And if you would like to donate and help me get some new equipment, it would really help out. You could do that through the Cash App link, or I do have a donation page on my website, beneficencetv.com. I also have a link on Streamlabs. There are many ways you can donate to me. You can do a super chat, but that all helps in the research and development of this coil, and we are going to be pushing for Phase 2 testing within the next coming months with the help of Mike and Nathan from Old Man Builds. They have graciously helped me. Nathan dedicated some material, and he's sending me a coil frame so I can do a workshop with you guys, have a backup, and we can actually roll out Phase 2 testing of this thing. And Mike is also helping me with the Bedini circuit, the schoolgirl circuit. We will be hooking up to the coil to power it with a battery. And hopefully I'll be having some public demonstrations as well. So that will all be excited. Phase 2 testing is going to take a little bit of time to gather the resources, but it will be faster if we have some donations. And again, any donations are really greatly appreciated at this point because, as you see, we're operating with limited resources. But the ball's rolling, so it's going to happen. And I will announce when the workshop will actually happen. It will probably be within the next month. So gather your resources if you're interested in that. I will make another short video telling everybody to prepare. Get your coil frame ready, your magnetic wire, your equipment, your solder, your solder iron. Probably want to get one of those little tiny sanders for sanding off the enamel, a torch to burn off the leads, electric drill. All of this is in the do-it-yourself guide, the materials list. So make sure you get all the materials ready. We are going to be doing a hands-on workshop on how to wind and connect these Rodin coils, PoE vortex coil. Oh yeah, I did have some exciting news that I found. Did I might have forgot to include it in here. Did I? Oh, nope, there it is. So, as a bonus before we shut down this live stream, something new to me. It turns out Daniel and Erica Lynn Nunez did receive their utility patent approved for the Vortex coil on November 7th, 2017. And here's the link right here. Oh, what happened? No. Don't do this to me. Oh, man. We got shut down, guys. Oh, there was a whole page right here on Google Patents. It said approved. Anyways, I'll find it. I'll find it. But I gotta I gotta get going. That was disappointing. I don't know what happened there. Oh, wow. Okay. As always, I really appreciate you guys for tuning in to this presentation and keeping up to date with my research and all the love and support from Nathan, Old Man Builds, and go check him out. Go subscribe. And also Mike does. Go subscribe to him. And Mike does know his stuff. And I'm going to end it with that. All right. Many blessings. Have a good Sunday.